Greetings, family, friends, foes, welcome. You've arrived at the last stop. Here you're going to find this dynamic, controversial sometimes, subject matter. We approach things from a different view than a lot of folks do. And yes, right now, we're going to jump off into one of the hottest sensations on the podcast scene in America and around the world right now. How about you? Enjoy this interview analysis with Miss Candace Owens here at the last stop, living with reality, truth, and its consequences.
The life of Candace Owens, it works like this. I wake up, I stretch, I have a cup of coffee, and then I am served with a lawsuit. I think that's the morning routine, my friends. That is clearly my morning routine. It is so effortless. And today, I have been sued by the first lady man of France. I want to be very clear here, right at the top, that this is obvious, very clear that it is an obvious and desperate public relations strategy. That's what this is. I will see you in court.
Ooh. Candace Owens has been breathing fire. Ooh, for the last year, really, when they woke her back up after she had a baby and stuff. But anyway, she's back on fire. And so, but we're going to point and counterpoint. Now, here's another group that's on the internet or the podcast scene that gets some recognition, but point and counterpoint. They call themselves the Young Turks. Go figure. But here they are now, point and counterpoint. Young Turks.
It continues. She's talking about it despite the lawsuit on her show yesterday. First couple of France, Emmanuel and Brigitte Macron, filed a defamation lawsuit against Candace Owens over her years-long campaign to prove that Brigitte is a man. So, Cenk, what's going on here?
I mean, look, this thing is mental. And so I reserve the right to agree with anyone, even if they're mental, on different issues. So Candace Owens has turned around in some remarkable way on the issue of Israel. And she's even explaining how Muslims aren't evil terrorists. And I can't believe it. So it's another reason to dislike this current Israeli government, because they made me agree with Candace Owens. But when she gets to this stuff, mental, totally mental. Why is she obsessed with trying to prove that the First Lady of France has a penis? I mean, it doesn't get any more mental than that. So I'm glad they're suing her. Okay, let's find out. And Candace says she's glad. Good. Let's go to court and find out. We'll find out after all these years. Is Candace onto it? Does she solve the case, right? There's a very...
Well, yes, I like that. I like his approach right there. Yeah, everything is mental. This man is from what they call the Young Turks. I guess he's a Turkish person, ethnicity. But life is mental. In case, well, I guess I'm saying that to him because I'm just expressing this view so for the whole world that life is mental. But yeah, is she gonna solve the case, as he says, in a sarcastic way? Well, we shall see, said the flea.
Here's been dogged by conspiracy theories that Brigitte was born a man named Jean-Michel Troganov, who supposedly then took the name Brigitte as a transgender woman. Jean-Michel Troganov is in fact Brigitte's brother and tried to paint herself as a martyr for the entire world.
You sent this lawsuit because you wanted to smear me, and it's not going to work. okay? You've met your match. And in case you haven't checked what time it is, this is not the world that you grew up in. People are tired of this, okay? You're paying attention to what's happening with Epstein, what's going on here. We are revolting against this. We're revolting against the perverts that run the world. And I want to be very clear here. I count you among them. I think you're sick. I think you're disgusting. And I am fully prepared to take on this battle on behalf of the entire world, okay? That's what I'm going to say. On behalf of the entire world, I will see you in court.
Jack, is she a martyr? Is she really believing these things deeply, or is it good for business? I don't know what to believe when it comes to this story, but you tell me.
No, I don't know either. I mean, I don't know what goes through Candace Owens' head.
As I step in right here, you know, when you say a lot of nothing, then you say a lot of something. When you say, I don't know, well, then why are you commenting? Since you say you don't know, I'm talking to the sister and to the Turk. You know, you said it's mental. Yes, it's mental. It most definitely is mental. So if you don't know, then it's best that you kind of leave it alone. But I know where you're coming from and I know where you're going. So, you know, we shall see if this is frivolous. Well, if it's frivolous, you know, time will tell. But I think that there's been enough time that has gone by so that if this Brigitte is not a man and has proof of that, well, I think this thing could have and should have been squashed a year ago. I think that's when about the time when Candace went on this campaign of exposing this here. So if they had that type of proof, you know, this could have been squashed. Boom, boom, boom. Picture this, picture that. Done. So I don't know if there is pictures of Brigitte as a boy, although Miss Owens has produced some photos of that she claims that is Brigitte, or actually a boy in childhood, whom she claims to be her brother. I get problems referring to transgenders. If she or it is, you know, it's like a it to me, you know. So the proof is always in the pudding. And one of my favorite helpers back when I was contracting in Alabama, he would always say, you know, time will tell. And that would calm down the situation. So time will tell, Young Turk and sister who is part of the Young Turk organization. So it seems to be.
I mean, where did she get this stuff from? Okay, so let's correct a couple of things on the record here. Number one, Candace, you're not doing it on behalf of the entire world. I am not interested in your heroic effort to prove that the First Lady of France has a penis.
Well, my Turkish fellow, maybe you may not be concerned about whether she, it, her, him has a penis or not, but I am. And, well, this is part of the reason why. Well, mostly the reason why. Humanity. You know anything about that?
Crazy, look at this. Okay, there's the gay BCs, right? Binary. B is for bi. This is crazy. We're gay, but this is crazy.
Right there, clearly. Coming for your children.
If you offer me a job and I find out my manager, my direct supervisor is going to be a minority, babe, keep that DEI hire and keep that job offer too. I prefer to work under white men, okay? White, middle-aged, men with a family, AARP eligible. Give me Jim, Bob, Bill, give me that.
Do you see what I'm talking about, my Turkish fellow? Only thing I would have hoped that sister would have said that she would have a black man, family man, as a boss, a Rahim, or Samad, or, a Rasul. But moving on from that particular story, but very similar, because all of this is, again, like I said, is all tied together here. Brittany Grenier. What is it? Who is it? Let's see.
Also, it looks like people are looking at all of Britney's past interactions and connecting the dots. This person said, didn't any of her teammates find it odd that she never dressed down? I mean, come on, I would find that odd after years of working with her. Meanwhile, we all know Stephen A. Smith is not just going to leave it at these DNA results coming out. He's going to expose not just Britney, but also all the people who have been protecting her. And if this DNA leak turns out to be real, the WNBA may have a scandal bigger than any it's faced before. He kept stressing the fact that Britney ought to be grateful made a lot of people feel like the WNBA had a hand in protecting Britney. And get this, the running theory was that the WNBA knew that if Britney stayed in that prison any longer than she did, the world would have found out about her real medical records, not the ones carefully edited to get her a spot on the league. A lot of people seem to agree with Stephen, and they left comments like, I generally don't like Stephen A. Smith, but he pegged it here. Absolutely pegged it. Another commenter said, if Griner is a female, why was she in a Russian male prison? But that's not all. Stephen A. Smith also went in on Britney for a rant she made about the WNBA. For context, a particular quote has been floating around on the internet.
Well, I can tell you this right here. I could care less about the comments that she made about the WNBA and her whatever, her rash attitude or spacing out. I can imagine spacing out when something as damaging as this has been uncovered. Yes, this goes into the WNBA as a whole, and not only Brittany Grenier. Are there any others similar to Brittany Grenier that may be, how do you say? Oh man, I tell you, it's wild. That's the best thing I can say about it right now. It's a tragedy, it's a travesty, it's all the above. But again, it's the parasitic cleanse that's going on right now. Corruption throughout the land. I'm talking everywhere. We just been lied to. I tell you, I'm going to get off my next podcast. By God's grace, will be on the medical field. Because there's so much going on in the medical industry and the healing industry right now that is also being uncovered. There's a parasite cleanse going on within the medical industry as well, from murdering people. Donor cards, don't sign no donor card, because if you can go into the hospital and just fine, and they'll put you in a coma. And tell your people that you're in a coma and just take you out and harvest your organs. So all this, some of this, I'm going to go into by God's grace on my next podcast. But right now, like I say, let's as far as Brittany Grenier was saying about the WNBA, that's nothing. Check this out right here. This was something extraordinaire.
Viral moments that didn't seem like a big deal at the time now started to make more sense. For example, why did Instagram never flag that viral poolside video as nudity even though it was supposed to be a woman bearing her full chest in public? And just to be clear, this has nothing to do with morality, virtue signaling, or questioning another person's identity. But facts are facts, and let's be real, if a random woman had posted
And so now, what did she just say? She said facts are facts. You have arrived at the last stop. Living with reality, truth and its consequences. I'm your host and conductor, Mansa Bay, AM. You know, the reality, wake up. I mean, come alive from your comatose state and start seeing reality as it is. Not like some fairy tale back with the Easter eggs and bunny rabbits and stuff like that and Santa Claus and all that madness. Clearly, like the question was asked, when Brittany was in Russia, why was he put in a man's prison? Why has that fact been concealed from us? Because like I said, we've just been lied to. We've been deceived. Yes, yeah, by an arch deceiver. So I think that speaks for itself. I'm sure it speaks for itself. And I am happy to be able to bring it to you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, girls and boys, sisters and brothers, mothers and fathers, grandmothers and grandfathers, because this is like, what? Yeah, for real. Well, we're going to move on to just a little bit upon the political scene here. Donald Trump, Epstein. So I want to touch back on that for a moment. And so, and then I'm going to cut it loose until the next time. I'm your host and conductor, Mansa Bay, AM. Here we go.
It's very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this is the room. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries.
Critics saw in Trump's response a clear attempt to divert attention from a controversy that has put him at odds with influential members of his own base. A few hours later, a spokesman for Obama dismissed the accusations, saying this: "Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction." It is a distraction, ladies and gentlemen. There is no doubt about that. I'm not about to sit up there and refute that. But I wouldn't call it weak. I wouldn't call it weak. Because what I would say to you is that if you're talking about Trump winning the election in 2016, and you then turn around and show proof that there was a concerted effort by the Obama administration to derail his presidency, that creates problems. Not from the typical scandal stuff. And listen, I remember when the Republicans were trying to disrupt Clinton's presidency by, living on a Monica Lewinsky situation. Okay? And essentially, you had libertarians going all crazy and all of this other stuff. He lied, and he did this in the Oval Office. That's what they were saying. Okay? But it did lead to Clinton losing his law license, ability to practice law for several years, okay? And obviously it was a scandal that really, really stained his presidency to some degree, even though he won back-to-back elections. So we understand that. But you can't ignore scandals like this, because if it involves the CIA, if it involves the FBI, if it involves the weaponization of law enforcement in this country, then we got a problem. We got a problem. Now, do I believe that it's an evasive measure? Absolutely. Do I believe it's distractionary on the part of the Trump administration to get everybody's mind off the Epstein files? You're damn right I do. Of course I do. Of course I do. Okay? But the reality is that that doesn't mean it's false. And if it's not false, and indeed there is a level of veracity attached to the allegations and the assertions articulated by Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump himself, and others, then, we've got a problem. Now, just to recap for those of you who didn't really know or understand, remember, Trump wins the election in 2016. All right?
Let me put a pause right there and say, well, then we've got a problem, Houston. Yeah, most definitely a problem. Now, I did some recording a little bit earlier and I lost it, but I had to come back with it, though, because this is so critical now. So, yeah, is it a distraction? Like you said, of course it is. However, if it be true, well, I'll let Stephen go ahead and say that. But I just wanted to jump in there and say, yeah, we got a problem with this here. Come on, Stephen, what else you going to say on that?
Because Democrats and the media, at least in the eyes of the right, attempted to paint Trump as being in cahoots with Russia to steal the election. The story haunted him all through his first term, and many people on the left still believe it's true, despite probes that found no evidence. Okay? So we got to point that out. When Tulsi Gabbard comes on the air the other day, she says she's releasing, the stuff that she released now suggests strongly that Obama-era intelligence agencies were weaponized against Trump to build a narrative of Russian collusion, with key figures like John Brennan ignoring top CIA employees who told him it wasn't really true. So understand the magnitude of that. The head of the CIA is told by his subordinates, there's no truth to this. But they keep the story of Russian collusion and Trump going on to sort of give the indication, not sort of, but to give the indication that Trump was in cahoot with Vladimir Putin and Russia. And obviously his entire presidency over the first term was preoccupied with that stuff, okay? Remember, the Russian collusion story was built off of the Steele dossier, all right? Remember that? Former British intel officer Christopher Steele? The Steele dossier, what did they say about it? Which was unverified opposition research paid for by the DNC and the Clinton campaign, if you're listening to the right.
See,
these are the kind of things
right, he said,
so when you look at,
he said, if you're listening to the right, come on, Stephen, I got to tighten you up right here. It ain't no if you listen to the right. These are actual facts. This is the last stop, baby. Living with reality, truth, and its consequences. I'm your host and conductor, Mansa Bay AM. No, he said, according to the right, no. These are actual facts. 2-year Mueller investigation, millions of dollars. Again, how they just pay people to it's part of the corruption that we're going to get off into a little bit later on. Okay, but come on, Steve, because you're addressing stuff that is very important, and I appreciate that.
Magnitude of that, and you hear the kind of things that they're saying. Of course, Obama doesn't have to worry about going to jail or anything like that. Trump ensured that when the Supreme Court ruled basically that he can operate with relative impunity.
I got to jump right in here again. Yes, he can operate. He's immune from official acts done while he's in office. Official acts. But this right here goes far way beyond his official acts, his official duties. That's what I'm saying. His official duties while in office. Acts committed in the process of him exercising his official duties. And he may break the law. Well, Trump, he killed American citizens. A drone killed them, He was not even charged for that. But this immunity thing from treason, I've got issue with that right there. You know, I'm not a lawyer, thank goodness. Lawyers really don't have that swell of a reputation. I'm not a doctor, etc., etc. I'm not this and I'm not that, but I am a researcher. I am a person that can count from 1 to 2 to 3. I'm cognizant, logical thinking, commonsensical thinking. Prove all things, right? Well, we got some proof going on here of the weaponization of the entire intelligence apparatus, as they call it. Intelligence apparatus, spying apparatus, overthrowing government's apparatus. I question whether that is covered under this so-called immunity thing that Stephen A. Smith is addressing right now. That they give all so much. Oh, the president can do whatever he feels like with him. No. Can't nobody do just whatever the hell they feel like doing. I don't care what court says this or that. This is the government of the people, not the courts. Come on.
That as commander-in-chief, actions that you exercise as commander-in-chief allows you to be immune from prosecution, essentially. I'm paraphrasing here, not getting too specific, but that's the bottom line. So if that applies to him, it certainly applies to Obama.
But you see, I get specific. Commander-in-chief, that means he's commander-in-chief over the military. See, he wears 2 hats. The hat of commander-in-chief, that's over the military action. As president, that's a civil matter. He's over the civilian population. Yeah, we're going to have to get specific because that's what we do when you're on trial. We get down to the fine print, right? The devil's in the details. Yeah, detail it on out, baby.
But if you are Trump and there is truth to this and you have the ability with facts to point out what transpired on behalf of the Democratic Party in pursuit of derailing Trump's presidency during his first term. Now, that's a problem. You hear words like treason and all this stuff. I mean, I'm not buying that, but the point is that you know the opposition is always looking to derail an administration. If you're a Republican in the White House, Democrats are going to try to derail you. If you're a liberal in the White House, the conservatives are going to try to derail you.
We see, I've got time out, brother. I've got to jump in there again. You see, I've got a problem with that. Whether you're a Republican in the White House or Democrat in the White House, if you got people, opposition so-called, trying to derail your presidency, trying to derail your plan for the American people, actually you're trying to derail the vote of the people. No, I got a problem with that, be it a Democrat versus Republican, Republican versus Democrat, liberal versus conservative, conservative versus liberal. No matter how you cut it. That does not jive. But you see, we've been dumbed down so much that we'll accept it. Well, not that we voluntarily accept, but we do voluntarily accept because we've been propagandized, we've been programmed, we've been dumbed down, lied to for so long about 90% of everything. Up is no longer up, it's down now. Oh, yeah, I got to jump in there when you're going crazy, Stephen, but I do respect you and I thank you for addressing this the way you're addressing it. Bring it on.
I was on the record saying his goal, his mission was to make sure that Barack Obama was a one-term president.
That wasn't Trump.
We heard this stuff before.
Yeah, that wasn't Trump.
When Trump gets into the office, it's not beyond the pale of comprehension that you're going to have people on the left saying they're trying to derail him too. That always happens. But the weaponization of intelligence agencies to pull that off brings on an entirely different problem. And if the Democrats are found to have been guilty of this, really creating this story, that's not good. because you have a whole bunch of people skeptical about politics to begin with, because he's considered the anti-politician. His behavior, his mannerisms, his language, his verbiage, his actions to some degree are very apolitical. It's not typically what you see from conventional politicians on Capitol Hill. And then when you think about how they went after him and they engaged in lawfare to take him down to 34 felony counts and convictions and all of this other stuff, they're going to say, see, he wasn't guilty of any of this stuff. They did everything they could to derail him from being the president because the mission was to keep him from getting back into the White House. It wasn't that he did this or did that. They're going to say it's all a hoax.
Now, I'm going to jump in here a little bit right here and say, why, though? They do all of this to keep him from getting back into the White House. They say, oh, he's Hitler, he's the devil, he's this, he's that. No. Why is the question? You know, they give him these 34 counts of felony counts for some, for a registering or signing some kind of a paper document. And made it into the War of Armageddon, you know. No, why? Because corruption, that's why. They knew that he was going to expose the corruption that has spread far and wide. This USAID money. All these monies going off to spending millions of dollars to watch shrimp run on a treadmill. That's all kickback and corruption. We talking about from your local all the way up to your national and all the way up into the international scheme of things. This is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, girls and boys. This is where we're at. This is the whole ball game. This is not no TV commentary. This is living with reality, the truth, and now the consequences.
They're going to bring up the Hunter Biden scandal with the whole laptop controversy. And they're going to say from 2016 to 2020 to 2024, each and every single time they were lying.
Yes.
And they were engaging in unsavory style behavior.
Yes.
That adds credence to the argument that we've been making against them. There's no truth to any of this stuff. They just wanted to derail the presidency of number 45. And they wanted to big up Biden. And they're going to point out how when he was on stage, as one pundit said, looking like an elderly individual in a nursing home waiting for his applesauce. But they were talking about him like he was lucid and cogent and alert and all of this other stuff. They're going to point that out. See Jim Jordan on the air the other night? You see these reporters? I mean, they're not playing. This is not going away.
This is not a game. No, they're not playing. But they had been playing. They've been playing the game of hide and seek. Well, they hid it for as long as they possibly could. But now it's all being exposed. And it is so big that it's really very difficult to wrap our heads around it. It's difficult for me to wrap my head around it, but through my research, my discipline, and my cognitive abilities to count from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and come out with the answer at the end of the day, and from some of the great analysts that I've listened to and learned from through the years. No, this is not. This is for the whole marbles. This is the ball of wax. Not just for America. Understand, this is the ball of wax for the whole of humanity now. Yes, the whole of humanity.
On the part of the Trump administration to get everybody's mind off the Epstein files, you're damn right I do. Of course I do. Absolutely. Do I believe it's distractionary on the part of the Trump administration? It involves the weaponization of law enforcement in this country, then we got a problem. We got a problem. It involves the FBI. If it involves the weaponization, we won back-to-back elections, so we understand that. But you can't ignore Trump wins the election in 2016. All right? Because Democrats and the media, as in being in cahoots with Russia to steal the election. The story haunted him all through his first term, and many people on the left still believe it's true, despite probes that found no evidence. Okay? So we got to point that out. When Tulsi Gabbard comes on the air the other day, she says she's releasing, the stuff that she released now suggests strongly that Obama-era intelligence agencies were weaponized against Trump to build a narrative of Russian collusion, with key figures like John or top CIA employees who told him it wasn't really true. So understand the magnitude of that. The head of the CIA is told by his subordinates, there's no truth to this. But they keep the story of Russian collusion and Trump going on to sort of give the indication, not sort of, but to give the indication that Trump was in cahoot with Vladimir Putin and Russia. And obviously his entire presidency over the first term was preoccupied with that stuff, okay? Remember, the Russian collusion story was built off of the Steele dossier, all right? Remember that? Former British intel officer Christopher Steele? The Steele dossier, what did they say about it? Which was unverified opposition research paid for by the DNC and the Clinton campaign, if you're listening to the right. These are the kind of things that are going on. So when you look at the magnitude of that and you hear the kind of things that they're saying, of course, Obama doesn't have to worry about going to jail or anything like that. Trump ensured that when the Supreme Court line. So if that applies to him, it certainly applies to Obama. But if you are Trump and there is truth to this, and you have the ability with facts to point out what transpired on behalf of the Democratic Party in pursuit of derailing Trump's presidency during his first term. Now, that's a problem. You hear words like treason and all this stuff. I mean, I'm not buying that, but the point is that you know the opposition is always looking to derail an administration. If you're a Republican in the White House, Democrats are going to try to derail you. If you're a liberal in the White House, before. And so when Trump gets into the office, it's not beyond the pale of comprehension. They're going to have people on the left saying they're trying to derail him too. That always happens. But the weaponization of intelligence agencies to pull that off brings on an entirely different problem. And if the Democrats are found to have been guilty of this, really creating this story, that's not good. Because you have a whole bunch of people skeptical about politics to begin with. And you got to remember, Trump is in office because he's considered the anti-politicians to some degree are very apolitical. It's not typically what you see from conventional politicians on Capitol Hill. And then when you think about how they went after him and they engaged in lawfare to take him down, the 34 felony counts and convictions and all of this other stuff, they're going to say, see, he wasn't guilty of any of this stuff. They did everything they could to derail him from being the president because the mission was to keep him from getting back into the White House. It wasn't that he did this or did that. They're going to say it's all a hoax. They're going to bring up the Hunter Biden scandal with the whole laptop controversy. And they're going to say from 2016 to 2020 to 2020. See Jim Jordan on the air the other night? You see these reporters? I mean, they're not playing. They've had the Epstein files for years. When Biden was in office, nothing got talked about or released then. What are we talking about it now for? That is a very valid point. And in the case of Trump or anybody else, just because you showed up to one of his parties doesn't mean that you engaged in his behavior. We're going to say that about a whole lot of people who showed up at the Diddy parties. So we can't do that. But nevertheless, with that being said, anybody that was seen with Epstein, anybody that was talking with Epstein, anybody that was seen in this company, anybody that was known to fly to one of his islands or one of his spots, assertions and assumptions are going to be made.
Yeah, you darn tootin'. But we don't have to make assertions. We don't have to make assumptions now. And I'm going to say this here at this point. Donald Trump, if there's something in these files, videos, papers, whatever y'all want to call it, list, and if it's something that you ashamed of, or some people that you know, that you are close to, that have done, well, it's just going to have the ball. This is for the whole ball game. This is for humanity. This is not just for America. The whole earth needs to be cleansed right now, and that's what's going on. A cleansing is taking place. That's why it's painful. It is so painful that, you see, we strain at a gnat. Picky, 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 but we're swallowing the whole elephant. This is so big. Like I say, this is for humanity's sake. This is not just for America's sake. There's this former KGB man. He said that America is the last place of any type of freedoms. There's no place else to go. There's no other asylum place to go. No, only destruction and slavery up under these maniac scientists like Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci, all of them. Yes. We've got to have prosecutions, charges, prosecutions, sentencing, and the execution of the sentencing. I'm your host, Mansa Bey. The Last Stop, Living with Reality, Truth, and Consequences. AM. Keep it going, Stephen.
It's not going away.
No. It's not.
But Trump's going to try. Now, me personally, I sincerely doubt that there's anything incredibly incriminating against Trump in regards to the Epstein files. I personally believe it's people he knows, people he's befriended, people who's padded his coffers over the years. I personally believe it's those folks that are in the Epstein files, because I definitely think one exists.
Just like I said just a little bit earlier, if that be the case, and I can see that as being the case, part of it, most of it, whatever, it's like parasites. It's a cleansing. We got to kill these parasites who have been sucking, these vampires who have been sucking the blood of the world, of the people of the world, through wars, through medical tyranny, killing us, through experimenting on us, all of our lives, experimenting on us, lying to us. Got us living in this fantasy world of Easter eggs and bunny rabbits and Santa Claus coming down the chimney. Yes, people really believe that. So no wonder I can sell you a bridge. No wonder that China can buy thousands of acres here, and Bill Gates can buy thousands of acres of farmland so they can say that they're going to feed us bugs and we'll own nothing. Come on, people. Come on, family. I send this out to my family because you don't get this type of information. I'm talking about conclusive information. Leave it in the comment back on me. You got some other information you want to refute this here at the last stop? You want to refute reality? Okay, well, update me then, because I don't want to be no fool and I don't want to be up here misrepresenting anything or anyone. So if you got some actual facts, bring it. Because I'm bringing it to you. You take it or let it alone. But this is your life, my life we're talking about, and this is not a game. This is not no TV show.
And I took a lot of heat weeks ago, and I wasn't paying much attention to it because I was on vacation. But people were going at me acting like I didn't care about rapists and or pedophiles. Of course I do. I think they deserve to be under the jails. And anybody that's been victimized by them, my heart goes out to them. God bless them. All I was saying is that it's politics. Don't expect much, because I don't trust these folks to ever tell you the truth. That's all I was trying to say.
And Stephen, yes, and that's a sad state of affairs. That we know that we're being lied to. And we're too cowardly to accept the challenge. Damn.
And if they don't tell you the truth, we're all going to move on because you got bigger fish to fry. Unfortunately, that's the reality.
Oh no. Oh, hell no. There are no bigger fish to fry. Unless you're talking about your own personal existence. But if you are concerned about your own personal existence, then you have to be concerned about your fellow brother and your fellow sister's existence as well, because you're not going to exist if they're not going to exist. Yeah, think over those things, okay?
That's not diminishing
That's right.
the significance of what happens to victims. It's pointing out that in every walk of life, there's always victims. Now you got powers that be, that deep state that Congress talk about, have their stalling everything, taking early vacations.
Let me jump in right here. Yes, and I can understand why. Because, see, this is so big. Like you said, the magnitude of this is, it's really impossible, or nearly impossible, for you to wrap your heads around it. To understand the weight, the gravity of this all. This is not just potentially to bring down the American government. Oh, no. I ain't going to say the American government. I would just say faith in all of its institutions. There will be a reorganization, I'll put it that way, because the intelligence agencies have failed us. It's just that simple. They have not abided by the law and they have committed treason. But this is so big that, you know, we have to slow this train down. It's moving too fast. But don't think that the Democrats, so-called Democrats, want these files released. Wants everything released. No, because the president, to my understanding, just recently, I'll verify this later on, has instructed for all the files, everything to be released. Yes. So we're going to, we'll see how that develops a little bit later on. But it's on like popcorn.
Because they don't want to vote on the Epstein files being released. When they come back, it'll still be here. MAGA's going to see to that. The MAGA right's going to see that. They want those files released. And you got some Republicans on the Hill that want the files released.
Yes, we want them
Obviously,
released.
the Democrats know this is an issue that's really staining the Trump administration. They want those files released suddenly.
Let me jump right in. Oh, you said suddenly the Democrats want these files released after they done had it for 8 years, dang near. No, the Democrats do not want these files released. They're playing that game. They're playing the game because they got these Democrat judges blocking the release of the grand jury testimony of Epstein's conviction down there in Florida. Okay? Yeah. They got 2 judges, Democrat judges, one appointed by Obama, I think the other one was appointed by Clinton. Matter of fact, this one particular judge has had every case involving Epstein brought unto him. And Roger Stone said it was something like 1 trillion odds that could happen. So, no, Epstein was a Mossad operative. He was a pawn in the game. But again, back to this, the Democrats do not want this stuff released because who was the only verifiable president of the United States has been to Epstein Island? Oh, I'm pretty sure you know, but if you don't know, it was Bill Clinton. Many times. And it's probably going to show, it's going to come out. Yeah, because we want to know. Like I said, if it's a parasite cleanse we need, and I know that's what is needed, the earth needs to cleanse itself right now of all of this corruption and blackmail. Don't get it twisted, Brother Stephen.
We'll see what happens. But both sides, we got to watch the tug of war that's going to take place because the Epstein files may be Trump's Achilles heel.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's the Democrats.
This Russian collusion case.
Yes.
That takes us back to the 2016 election.
Yes.
Where allegedly, according to the right, Barack Obama instructed.
No. See again. Hush your mouth, Stephanie Phil. According to the right. What the hell are you talking about, according to the right? No, this is according to the declassified, highly classified documents. This is documented proof. It ain't no according to the right. But I understand you can't speak totally freely, but you speaking enough. So I appreciate that. Give me the opportunity to check, to bring the actual facts here to the last stop. Living with reality, truth, and consequences. Yeah, the last stop planet. That's where you've arrived at. No, we don't play here. No, we don't play here. This is the real deal.
Intelligence agencies, FBI, CIA, to keep this story alive, knowing there was no truth to it whatsoever.
That's what they did.
In terms of its effect on the 2016 election.
Actual facts.
It can get very interesting.
What do you mean, King? Oh, yes, sir.
I'm always going to roll with the benefit of the doubt with Obama. I ain't going to lie to you. I'm going to give the man the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
But that doesn't mean this story's going away. It's not.
I give none of them the benefit of the doubt. No, I don't, because I know Obama's history. I give none of them the benefit of the doubt. No, I don't, because I know Obama's history. See, I don't give him the... He's an asset. Living with Reality, the last stop planet podcast. I'm your conductor and host, Mansa Bay AM. This is such a big topic, so this is going to be a continuation. I had some earlier. Don't forget what was on earlier with Candace, because all of this stuff is tied and linked together in some form of way and fashion. It's a worldwide web of deceit, distraction, destruction, corruption at the highest levels. Remember that biblical scripture. It says, we war not with flesh and blood, but with powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. Remember that. Because the word has become flesh. Yeah, and it's dwelling right in front of our faces. Thank you. We'll be back.